Most lawyers fall into one of two camps when it comes to AI: quietly terrified of it or pretending to use it. Today's guest is neither. Patrick Williams was a computer engineer before he was an attorney. He got out of tech right as of the 2001 collapse hit, went to law school, and now runs a family law firm where he doesn't just use AI, he builds his own tools and hands them to the entire team. He's also the first person to tell you exactly where it'll burn down. So let's get to it. Patrick, welcome. And for anyone who doesn't know you yet, give us a 30-second version of who you are and what keeps you busy these days.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here. I'm Patrick. I'm a family law attorney. I'm one of the founding partners of Poore Williams in Raleigh, North Carolina. We do family law. We have some other practice areas as well, but family law is the gist of it. I actually started this law firm directly out of law school back in 2005. And since then, we've got 10 total employees now, 6 attorneys. So we built it over time, but I call myself the trial and error king, and I'm a gadget guy. I love any tool I can find from a technological standpoint that makes my job easier and automates things in my practice. I'm employing, so I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. I'm sure you're a great resource. You're one of the only attorneys that I've talked to who started out building computers instead of arguing cases. So take me
Yeah.
back to computer engineering in NC State, and how does that path even begin? You were a sysadmin network security worker in the dot-com bubble burst.
Yeah.
What did that actually look like for you with the layoffs and the back to back of it?
So it was an interesting story. Going to school, thought I wanted to do microprocessor design. So my major was computer engineering. And then I did a co-op, I think my sophomore year in college, where I got introduced to just Unix and Unix system administration, Linux and the off non-Windows operating systems. So I interned at IBM in Austin, Texas, and it just turned out that starting that job and learning what I learned there kind of taught me the skills I needed to be a system administrator, and it was in demand at the time. So my junior year in college, I was a sysadmin and decided to do that full time and go to college part time. And I was making good money at the time, so I'm thinking, hey, I don't need to finish college. Why would I do that? So I did system administration for a bunch of internet service providers in the area, and then ultimately 2001 kind of things went south, and 2 companies I was working for went under while I was working for 'em. Got laid off from another, and then the last job I believe that I had, it was doing web admin, Unix sysadmin. I was just like, you know what, this market is not for me. I need to shift to a field where I can have a little bit more control over what happens if the market goes down, something a little bit more recession proof, and then I can kind of go out on my own if I need to. And that's where the idea of law came from, and just turned out that some of the same logic you use in programming and administration is very similar to the logic you use when you're making arguments based on the law. So it was a good fit.
Yep, yep, and you answered my next question, why law?
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of, the same structure, right,
Yeah.
of how you think about things, applies to law. So, let's talk a little bit about your firm and how, where it sits today. There's 3 partners. How's it actually structured? Who does what?
So we have 4 partners now and 2 associates, but basically everyone does family law. That's the bread and butter. I've got 2 partners that are focused, additionally in child welfare law. They deal with Department of Social Services investigations, and then I have a pretty strong focus. I do alienation of affection cases, which are very rare. There's only 3 states in the country, I believe, that's a legal cause of action. It's basically a cause of action that gives your spouse the ability to sue your paramour if you have an affair. So I've argued that case, or alienation of affection cases, up to the Supreme Court here in North Carolina. So I've kind of gotten a little reputation for doing those. And then we have another partner who does estate planning and another one who does general civil litigation. And we all have associates working on cases with us in a paralegal. So one of the mantras of our firm is that we do a team-based approach. Everyone has a partner, an associate, and a paralegal on their case. So we try to be extremely responsive to clients when they have questions with their open cases.
Cool. And you told me, so on top of practicing, and obviously you'd be the tech lead with your background, you're
Yeah.
also the marketing lead. So how did that hat wind up on your head?
Yeah, so I am the marketing and technological guru, and that's naturally because of my background and tech support around the office. But it all started, truthfully, back when I started my firm. I didn't have any money. I didn't have a lot of money, so I was doing court appointed work. But the one thing I knew I could build for no money was going to be an internet marketing presence. So I understood how to make a website. I designed my website initially. I worked on search engine optimization very early on. Paid ads were not huge back then. I think people were still, this I'm talking 2006, were still walking around trying to sell physical yellow pages ads to us at that time. But as paid ads became a big thing, we started doing paid advertising. I started that campaign. So it's natural, it's been natural for me to continue to lead in those areas. I've kind of off some of that to some third party vendors from time to time. And some of those experiences have been disastrous. Some of them have been good. Like the vendor I work with now is really good, but that and any type of technology that helps automate things in the office, helps us do tasks, admin tasks. I'm the person who says, "Hey, I found this cool tool. Let's use it." So
Right. Yeah. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, he doesn't have my questions in front of him. He just somehow knows what I'm about to ask. So, there's a lot of one question that I think a lot of people ask, they might not say it out loud, is how do I get more things done with less people or without having to hire more people? I'm not trying to say that AI is coming for your job because I really don't think it is, but people definitely would like to get more out of their day without having to increase their HR spend,
mhm.
and I'm sure that's the case for your firm as well. Is that what AI solving that problem for you? Are you finding that you're able to get more done with the same amount of people thanks to the AI tools?
Absolutely. It is a time saver on repetitive tasks completely, but it comes with a caveat that you can't trust everything that spits out. So just by way of example, we use our primary tool. I started out using, messing around with ChatGPT, and from a law perspective, I found it to be helpful, but not extremely accurate. Like not accurate, very, very inaccurate, not enough to trust it. Like it would get the meat of it done, but you have to look at things with a much finer tooth comb, I thought, coming from ChatGPT. So when I started using Claude, that's really when things started to kind of pick up for us. And Claude has been helpful with regards to several tasks that we just had a hard time. So it's been very helpful with me personally with search engine optimization. That's something that I always outsource, but I've been able to kind of, can run continuous checks on that. We use it to automate billing, which is one of the most tedious tasks. We had a block on everyone's calendar in our firm. We had a block on Fridays from 12 to 4. Like, hey, make sure your billing is caught up. And I was able to create a skill in Claude that kind of creates that initial template for you. It'll go at the end of the week. It'll say this is all the work that we believe is billable, that we believe can be billed, and it'll estimate time. And basically, it makes it easy for you to just go through there, double check it, make sure the time is accurate, make sure you actually did what it's saying. This is possibly a billable action, and enter it. So that saved tons of time across the firm. We use AI in our procedures. We use an app called Tettra for that. That is an app where we enter our procedures and it basically uses it as a knowledge base, and you can ask it questions. We use Slack. You can ask it questions in Slack and it'll search the procedures and say, hey, this is a probable answer. And if there's not an answer, it'll say, who do you think is the person who is most likely to know the answer to this question? And it'll send that to that person. And then when that person answers it, it'll automatically add it to your procedures and systems going forward. So it's like a growing knowledge base. I mean, there's a ton of tools we use, but they've been extremely helpful in taking a lot off our plate and doing admin things primarily.
So just to walk back for a moment, you said 12 to 4, so that's 4 hours of your time, but you said we. So how many people would be in that 12 to 4, billing review meeting that happened every week?
No, everyone. So it's not a meeting. It's just basically, okay, during this time,
This is
don't
what we're
schedule
going to
anything
do
because we
for
need to
12
make
to 4.
sure everyone's billing. So our
Okay.
attorneys bill and each of our paralegals bill. They have, we have a performance-based bonus system for our paralegals.
Okay.
And it's important for them to, put our
Yeah.
time in. We've got a couple employees who get paid based on what they bill.
Right.
So
Right.
it's a situation where you got to have it done, and it saved everyone tons of time because we're not having to use that entire 4-hour
Yeah.
block every Friday to
Right.
make sure billing is caught.
So whatever that math is, your whole firm times 4 and whatever
Yep.
they bill, it saved you that,
Plus, yep,
plus whatever it found.
yep,
So, putting a number of that is nearly impossible, but you could at least put the first half 4 times everybody's billable hours, it saved you. That's
yep.
awesome. That's
Yeah,
great.
well, not even what it saves you, but yeah, it's like it saved it, and then like you free that time up for more billable hours or more consultations to take in new clients. So it's like you said, it's immeasurable.
Yep. So on top of that, you don't just take the tool off the shelf and throw it into things. You custom build things inside of Claude and share
Yep.
it across the team. Tell me about it. What came about with that? What sort of things were you able to design for your firm based off your skill set? To buy back even more time.
Yeah, so the billing is probably the number one tool that I use the most. But in addition to that tool, I was just having a meeting with one of my intake coordinators, and I was like, "Hey, it would be really nice if I had like stats that told me how many consultations are coming in, what the conversion rate is, how many consultations are canceling, and any type of cross sections between date when they call, when the consultations are scheduled, that type of stuff." And she was like, "Okay, I'll work on that for you." And then I thought about it. I was like, "Let me just put this in Claude." I put it in Claude, and we have a Slack channel. We use Slack to communicate within the office. We have a Slack channel where all the communications regarding consultations are like what time they schedule, when they're coming, did they cancel. So basically, just gave Claude access to that channel, and it runs a report from you every week that says, "Hey, this is how many consultations you had this week. This is how many hired." And that is super valuable data from a marketing standpoint, because you know where your sources are coming from, or where your clients are coming from, what sources they're coming from, how much money it is directly correlated to that. So that's another tool we use that runs automated. I've used it as kind of like a legal assistant to me to help me plan out my day. Like, hey, these are your open tasks, these are your running tasks. This is what you should do in the morning. This is what you should focus on in the afternoon. And that's a tool that I've spread out to the team. I don't know everyone who uses that, but I use it. I find it to be extremely helpful. And so it's just been in email, helping me manage email. It's been a godsend. It's just made it so much simpler for me because I'm a heavy task procedure person. So to have a task list of what I need to complete at what times it's extremely helpful to me, and it makes sure we don't have things fall through the cracks as far as deadlines and tasks and things like that.
Yep. And then you also built the company website thanks to AI tools as well. And then you mentioned,
So I built it originally before there was AI,
okay,
but as far as generating new content, it's been helpful with that, and it's been helpful with design elements. I also have a course that we'll talk about later that helps with new small firms and young attorneys who want to start their own firms. That leads them through that, and the course, the site that I have for that was built with AI design wise. Obviously, I wrote most of it, but the actual design was with AI, and and some of the tools that are available in the course that I did not even know you could put in a web page were extremely helpful, and they were built with AI.
well, while you're on it, go ahead, run free and tell us about your course.
All right, so yeah, I launched the course back in April. It's called Firm Builder Blueprint. The website is firmblueprint.law, and the entire purpose of that course is it's 12 modules, but it is a group of lessons that I learned in building my firm, and it allows people who take the course to eliminate the failures for me, to eliminate the thousands I spent on vendors who couldn't tell me, what they were actually doing for me, and it's just it covers from incorporating AI in your practice as a small firm practitioner to help you compete with some of the larger firms from a workload perspective. It covers getting over fears and frustrations and starting your firm, how you're going to get your first client. It covers what you should be doing in your initial consultation to close more client leads. It covers, selecting practice area. How do you pick how much you should charge per hour? But the thing I'm most proud of in the course is there is a tool section. It's maybe like about 7 or 8 tools. One of them is, how do I calculate the cost of client acquisition? How do I track whether my marketing services are working? One of them is, it will help you. You just put in your information. It will help you build a firm business plan on what you should be focusing on to build your clientele. And then there's another, I'm losing my mind on some of them. One of them is, another tool is basically calculates what you want to pay. It's a calculator that calculates what your hourly rate should be. So you put in there how much you want to make, how much you have to spend on marketing, and then it says, okay, this is how much you should charge per hour based on that. And these are interactive tools. If you buy the course, it's a one-time fee. You can go back in and use those for tools as much as you want to. So I think it's an awesome course.
It's awesome. And how long have you had that live?
It's been live since mid-April. I think April 15th was the launch date.
Okay.
So it is unlike anything that's out there. When I started my firm, there was a book that I read that was an awesome book, but it didn't give you tools, and it didn't go as in depth as course went into, because obviously some of the methods from an advertising standpoint that we have now just weren't available when I read that book. So I think it's the most up to date course as far as helping people start firms who want to.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll put a link to the show notes and have our listeners check it out, and anyone can find value in that. That seems like a no-brainer if you're starting
Yeah.
out, give yourself a leg up, you know, get to where you wanna be faster. So a little bit of the good, bad, and the ugly. You said something to me before we recorded. I wanted everyone listening that AI output is not the end of the story. So unpack that and give me the real explanation, not hypothetical, why you say it's not the end of the story.
Yeah, so two things that I use AI for, or at least, I mean, I experimented with it at first, and this was primarily ChatGPT. It was let me figure out what it can do and what it can do accurately. So the two tasks that kind of taught me that it was not to be trusted, just blindly trusted, was the first thing is I had this case we were doing a client had a guardian ad litem. Was it guardian ad litem? No, it was a psychological evaluation. And as part of that psychological evaluation, she had to turn over documents to the psych evaluator. And she wanted to give the psych evaluator this deposition that was taken of the other person in the case. So I had ChatGPT read this deposition, and it was a long deposition. It's probably 150 pages. I was like, read this and generate a summary. So, and you want to give it some background. You want to give it some background on your case when it does that, because I think that makes it a little bit more accurate. So it generates this summary from the deposition, and I'm reading through the summary, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is an awesome deposition for us. Like, it's saying that this father said, admits that he's not a great father, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, great. So let me go look in here and check these sites out and see if this is actually in here, because I read through this and I don't remember these things. So sure enough, I go to the page in the line number, and what it says is not in the deposition at all. So I'm just like, oh gosh. So, it's one of those things where you have to check thoroughly that. Part of that, I do believe, is it probably could have used a better prompt in a deposition. I don't know if you've ever seen a deposition transcript before, but it tells you who's talking. And I think it could have used a better prompt to say, this is who this person is, this is who this person is, to maybe generate a more accurate result. But it pulled what it found and summarized out of thin air. So, and I'm sure people have heard about some of these cases with lawyers in other states who have just filed briefs straight from AI with no proofreading. Like that is a horrible idea. It's just not accurate. Another thing, then the second thing that kind of led me to believe that it was, not to be completely trusted, is I had another case where we were trying to discover whether or not the spouse of my client had committed an act of infidelity. So she had hundreds of thousands of dollars in credit cards. So she had given us statements for 10 or 15 different credit cards. And it would have cost my client thousands of dollars just for me to go through all these statements looking for evidence of infidelity. So the initial screen, I put in ChatGPT, and I'm like, categorize the spending in these statements. So categorize it as, household spending, entertainment, leisure. And if there is anything in here that would be indicative of an affair, flag that. All right. So it's going through the statements, over and over again. It's fine. It's doing these summaries. And then when I get to the end, I'm like, all right, what do you have? And it's like, I can't even remember. And this is ChatGPT, not me. This is like, I don't have in my memory these initial statements that I read. And I'm like, it would have been nice that you told me that beforehand, first of all. But then it was just, it was completely inaccurate. It wasn't completely inaccurate. I take that back. It was somewhat accurate, but because it could not remember some of the earlier statements it looked through, it was saying there's no evidence of, any wasteful spending in these statements. But I remember specifically when I had put in earlier statements that it said, okay, this might be indicative of wasteful. So it was not consistently holding on to all the data that it was processing. And it was just one of those things where I was like, okay, you may not actually find out this inaccurate or that it doesn't have something towards the end, once you're doing a long project like that. So it is helpful, but it is not to be blindly trusted.
Right. Yep. And that's the scary thing. Like you'll read it and it will sound exactly right. It'll give you the wrong
Mm-hmm.
information with full confidence.
Yep.
And you'll read it like it's a beautiful story. And like, I have nothing to question here, but if you don't, verify, it
Yeah.
can lead you the wrong way. And, we all have heard those stories of people going into the courtroom, with full confidence with, you know, false information, and
Yeah.
the outcomes are not pretty.
Well, my saying for AI and reviewing materials is treat it like an employee or an associate, but you don't treat it like that employer or associate that you trust implicitly. You treat it like that employer or associate who may have burned you one time, and you need to double check their work to make sure that it is what it says. And I do believe, even with you double checking, that it saves you time, but it is not a plug it in and send it out type of thing.
No, I've heard it that way, put that way in a lot of different forms. A new employee, you don't trust them implicitly. You
Hmm.
don't leave them off to take your major case and expect a wonderful outcome. You got to look over their shoulder, sort of thing. So awesome, thank you. So let's make this genuinely useful for someone listening, like a solo attorney, small firm, and they've got nothing set up. Where do you think that they should start when it comes to AI tools?
Well, I would say Claude would be where I would start. The co-working plan is what we use. Is not too expensive. Is the only problem with it I have is obviously token usage. I'm sure everybody can say about that when you're using tokens in Claude. Sometimes during busy hours when you're trying to use it, you're not able to use it. But I would start with there because it is very conversational, and I love the fact that it will ask you follow-up questions if it doesn't necessarily have all the data it needs to generate what it needs to generate. But I have found it to be extremely accurate as far as drafting things. Like, if I say, "Hey, give me a form. I got to draft this motion. Give me a form motion using this format that I've used before, using these facts." And I check behind it, but like I said, it is far more accurate. It's very rare that I look at it and I'm like, okay, you just pulled this out of thin air. And it is for a small firm, solo practitioner, it will increase your productivity. It will save you time. You can't pass those costs along to your client, obviously, because our bar, at least in our jurisdiction, the bar says that you can't use AI and then bill for the amount of time it would have taken you if you didn't use AI. You have to bill the actual time you use, but it will sometimes as a solo practitioner, it is I got to get this done quickly and as accurately as possible. I mean, I don't have time to spend a day on it, and that is where AI comes in handy, and that will help you stay in the hunt and be as productive as some of these larger firms are. And another way from a billing perspective to deal with it is, some things you can do flat fee and then you can use AI to do it as quick as you want. You don't have to worry about, keeping up with how much time it took. So it just gives you flexibility. It is a resource that you can use to kind of fill in the gap for you being short staffed or being small. And I think if you're in that boat, you definitely should be using it.
100%. And I like your point that you make about it asking you questions. Fun fact for people that don't know, you can ask it to ask you questions.
Oh, okay.
If you come
Hmm.
across something, don't fill in the blank. Ask me about it. Ask my
Yep.
opinion, and it'll have a conversation with you. So,
Hmm.
and you framed it on our first call a way that I love to frame AI as a force multiplier, not as a replacement. And so there are still people out there that are pretty nervous about AI coming for their job. So when you come across people like that, which I'm sure you do, how do you talk them through that nervousness about AI coming for their job?
Some of my staff members have, when I mentioned that example earlier about the conversation I had with my intake coordinator about, hey, I need you to generate these stats. I don't. It's not. It's less about. And one of the things she said immediately was, "Wow, this is doing my job for me." And I was like, "Well, this is doing this one facet of your job for you, but what you need to embrace is the fact that you can use this to do things like this, and then I don't have to do it." So I would encourage anyone who thinks that AI is going to take their job to become familiar with it and embrace it, and you use it in your job to be more productive. And so since I've said that to her, she's come up with some new, tracking metrics and things like that and reports to generate that she's generated with AI. And I'm like, oh, this is extremely helpful. So there's still room to use these tools to make yourself more productive instead of thinking of it as, oh, this is ultimately going to replace me. Because I still have to spend time putting prompts in there. I got to put prompts in there. I got to refine the prompts, and it is just. I mean, it's obviously better than doing these things by hand, but it's awesome if you've got an employee who embraces it and can do these things themselves. So I would say embrace it.
Awesome. Excellent. Great advice. So where all can people find you? Again, run down the gamut. Tell us about your course again for anybody that missed that section. We'll put it in the notes, but
No problem.
LinkedIn, websites, where can everyone find you?
Problem. So yeah, my our website for our firm is batchwilliams.com. That's B as in boy, ATCH Williams.com. For anyone looking for an attorney, I love one of the things that we take pride in doing is we are some attorney firms you go to or some attorney websites you go to are not informative. So it may say, hey, we practice family law. If you've got a family case, call us and we'll answer your questions. Our website takes the opposite approach. We have tons of guides, tons of useful information. And it's written from the perspective of you can do this yourself, pro se. If you read this guide, we try to give very accurate representations of well how that stuff works. But at the end of the day, a lot of people read that and they say your website was very informative, but I don't feel confident in doing this myself. So then they come to us and they hire. So it's helpful if you're interested with regards to how North Carolina law applies to your case. We have tons of useful information on the website. So that is our firm website. Uh, My course, as I mentioned earlier, Firm Builder Blueprint is firmblueprint.law. Again, I think it's the best and most comprehensive modern course out there for young attorneys looking to start their own firm, even older attorneys who are in practice. There's two courses. One is starting your law firm straight out of law school. And then the other course is if you are a practicing or established attorney looking to go out on your own. And there's different tools in there for both of those entities. So yeah, that is the course. Please take a look. There's a free portion of it. I usually do newsletters once a week that supplement on individual firm building topics, and all that is free. So definitely encourage you to do that. I'm on LinkedIn, jpatrickwilliams.com, and pretty much that is it. We have an Instagram page, but our Instagram page is more is more entertainment than it is informative. But it just if you're interested, Instagram and BPW Law is our Instagram handle. So
Awesome. Excellent. Patrick Williams, the engineer who became a lawyer and never stopped building. Links to the course and his LinkedIn and all of the websites will be in the show notes. And if you enjoyed the episode and got something out of it, you own a firm and you want to know how to build some workflows, get some AI infrastructure going in your firm that actually, adds value for you. That's what we do here at Endeavors AI. I'm Colin McKee, the founder of Endeavors AI. So please reach out. And with that, we will see you on the next one.
all right, thank you for having me.